In this video, I'm gonna show you guys how to properly wire this entire DJ system from start to finish. Let's do it. What's up, bros? Welcome to the special how-to video brought to you by my friends over at Hosa Technology. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to completely wire an entire DJ system, everything from sound, lighting, and visuals, and it's all going to be powered by my friends over at Hosa. They sent over the entire cable array that we are going to be using for this DJ system, and I'm going to show you every step of the way how we make our productions come to life. So let's take a closer look at everything that Hosa Technology has sent our way. Now, before we get into actually rigging our DJ system, I want to share with you guys some personal tips and tricks that I personally use to maintain my cables looking fresh, new, and organized. So whenever I get a brand new set of cables, there are three things I like to personally do. I like to label my cables, mark my cables, and wrap my cables. For labeling, I like to use this Dymo label maker. Really does come in handy when making labels for your cables. I additionally like to mark my cables, and I do this by taking some zip ties. Now, why do I mark my cables? This is a great way of knowing which cables are yours. This is great, especially if you work for a multi-op, if you work with bands, or in general, if you work with other DJs. It's great knowing what cables are yours and what cables are theirs. I like to always mark my cables with red zip ties. They come in all different colors. You can even get yellow. By the way, a little pro tip, if you want to skip the label making part, a lot of people use colored zip ties to denote what cable is what. For example, an XLR with a red zip tie could mean it's a 20-footer, and an XLR with a yellow zip tie is a 10-footer. Last and final thing I like to do is obviously wrap them, and we do this by using Hosa Velcro ties. Now, these are only 8 inches. You will run into issues when you have thicker cords like power cords, extension cords. So I recommend that on top of getting the 8-inch ones from Hosa, I also recommend that you guys get these longer ones that are about a foot in length. These work great for the power and extension cords. So let's go ahead and put that into practice. Let's go ahead and create a label. I'll show you guys the exact specs that I use on my Dymo maker. So I like to use bold font and a size of 20. Then what I go ahead and do is just label it XLR. Today we're going to be labeling a 3-foot XLR. And then I like to add 20 spaces. So I'll go ahead and count out 20 spaces. And then we'll go ahead and label XLR 3-foot once more and press print. Now we have our label made. This is what it looks like. Now let's take our cable. Let's go ahead and first zip tie it. Zip tie on each end. Zip tie here and zip tie here. With some scissors, I'll cut. Now let's go ahead and take our Velcro. I'm gonna go ahead and use the Hosa branded one because this is a short cable, and we lock it down. Go ahead and remove the wrapper. Peel the back of the label. And for XLR cables, I like to use the male end. For power cables, I like to use the female end. So I'm gonna go ahead, grab the male end, make sure that I'm centered, and then I'm going to squeeze in and let the air out. And this is what the final product looks like. We can see that it's a 3-foot XLR. We know that it's bar entertainment by the red zip ties on both ends. And of course, we have it wrapped with our Hosa Velcro tie. Now, in addition to all the cables that Hosa has sent our way, they've also sent over their line of PPE gear. It's a new world that we're living in, and I highly recommend that when you go out and do gigs, you buy yourself some PPE gear. Hosa's line of PPE gear includes face masks, gloves, hand scrubs, hand sanitizers, as well as their line of Gobi Labs products, which include microphone sanitizers and screen cleaning products. All right, so let's get to rigging. Step 1 is going to be framing. I got my man Christian. Say what's up, Christian.
What's up?
So to start off with, we have our sound system. I am personally a huge fan of the JBL 815P. These are professional power loudspeakers. They're a little bit heavy, but they pack a nice punch and they really get the job done. Take a look here at the bottom, we have the subwoofer. Now, something to note, you may not have a 2-in-1 subwoofer. If you take a look at this subwoofer, there's actually 2-in-1. You may find yourself having 2 cabinets. It just so happens that I bought one with one whole cabinet that houses 2. The reason I did this is because I love throwing brides and grooms on top, getting to use this kind of as a stage. If we move down just a little bit, we have the lighting that we use for our facade. I personally use these ADJ UV bars. It's composed of 2 different ones. We have 2 12 UV bars, and then on the right hand side you'll see that we have a UV6. Those are a little bit smaller than the 12. Over here we have our totems. What I personally use are Global Trust totems. These are 2-meter totems, otherwise known as 6.5-foot totems. And on top there you'll notice that we have our ADJ focus spot lights. Those are awesome lights. Those are the 3Z, so they are the older models. Now they're all the way up to the 6Z, so there's a bunch of different models ahead of this one. Inside of our Global Trust totems, we have a ADJ Wi-Fi Hex fixture. The reason why I use this is because these have built-in wireless DMX, and that's going to prove to be crucial when we get to the lighting section of this video. By the way, I did do a full entire breakdown on how I built these wireless totems, and I'll list it up in the card above. The last and final piece of the puzzle is our actual console, and similar to how I did with my totems, I actually went ahead and did an entire video showing you how I wired my console. In this video, I'm not going to be going into too much detail about all the cables that we used inside of this console because, like I said, I've already made a video on it. Inside of this case, some of the cables include XLR. These are short 3-foot Pro XLRs from Hosa, as well as microphone cables for our microphones, which you find right here. Additionally, I'd like to remind you guys that Hosa does have a line of microphone sanitizers. These are great, especially in the time that we are currently living in. You don't want to get yourself or others sick, so with just a little squirt of this, you can sanitize all of your microphones like so. You place this on it and it'll kill all the bacteria, all the germs on your microphone. Now, additionally, I would also like to mention that on this case, I have pre-drilled the XLR ports, as you guys can see down here on the bottom left. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm coming from my DJ controller. Today for this video, we're using the DDJ 1000 SRT. We're coming out with 2 XLR cables. We're using 3-footers, and we're going into the ports that we've drilled on here on our case. Essentially what this does is it allows us to plug in and rig our system nice, fast, and more efficiently because we don't have to go digging through cables inside of our play case, because once everything's rigged, as you guys can see, it's a little bit tough to dig behind here. I love having these ports right here because I can just go right in with my XLRs to my speakers. All right, now it's time for the fun part of this video. It's now time to rig our sound system. What I personally like using for the sound system are Hosa Pro XLR cables. A lot of you guys are wondering, Bart, what length? That's the most common question that I usually get asked. I personally recommend that you go ahead and use 15-foot cables. If you're running a similar sound system to the one that I personally run, 15 feet is honestly more than enough. Additionally, if you want to take it a step further and you do spread your speakers out a little bit further than what I personally do, I recommend getting 20-foot cables. I found that anything more than 20 foot or less than 15 foot is a little bit too much. You're gonna have a ton of slack or not enough slack. So the sweet spot, in my opinion, is between 15 and 20 footers. Now, additionally, when it comes to cables, I do want to point out something because this is a common question that I often get asked. Hosa makes 3 different types of XLR cables, which I'll show you right now. It includes the Edge line, the Hosa Pro line, and the regular Hosa brand. The most budget friendly of the trio is obviously our Hosa standard cable. This is is just an XLR cable. It'll get the job done for most people, especially if you're on a budget. This is the way to go. Now, if you have a little bit more money to play with, I recommend stepping up to the Pro Series. The Pro Series is what I personally use and what we're going to be using to wire our speakers for this video. What you get when you step up from the standard to the Pro is you're going to get a thicker gauge, meaning that you're going to have better noise to sound quality. Additionally, you're going to get better connectors than what you have on the standard base model one here. Now, if you're one of those people that absolutely has to have the best of the best, the cream of the crop of the three is the Hosa Edge line. This is a beautiful cable, and I'll show you guys the biggest difference between the Pro and the Edge. If you look inside the barrel here, you can see that this is a gold-plated cable versus a standard silver cable here. So when you step up to this one, you're gonna get the best sound clarity possible. This is Hosa's flagship cable, however, it's very expensive. And to be honest, for most people, this is going to be overkill. I actually wouldn't even recommend that you use this just to run your speakers. These I recommend more for musicians, for bands. However, for your microphones, I recommend that you go ahead and just get a couple of these cables just to run your microphones to your mixing boards. This will give you the optimal sound quality. These three cables will honestly do the job for any applications. Essentially, what you're looking at is a scenario of good, better, best. So the way I personally do this is I'm gonna go ahead and take one of my 15-foot XLR cables and I'm gonna come right out of my console. Again, if you don't have this, you're gonna come right out of your mixer. So we have one side, that's going to be our left side, and we're gonna take another cable. We're gonna go ahead and pop another one of these, nothing like fresh cables. And now we're gonna go into the right one. We'll go ahead and plug that in. Now, if you're not running a dual sub like I'm personally doing here, you're gonna run these cables opposite of each other. Now, because I'm personally using a dual sub, I'm gonna run these together and I'm gonna just go ahead and toss them underneath. And now let's go in the back and plug in the sub. Let's go ahead and plug one into one and one into another. I'm gonna take two additional XLR cables and we're gonna come out of here and we're gonna take these lines to go into our speakers. So we're gonna take a line out of here and that'll go to the left side, so a left speaker, and a line out of here and that'll go into our right side. So here we are on the back of our speaker and it's pretty straightforward. We're gonna go right into channel 1, input 1 of our speaker, and this is the one that we just took out of our sub. And we're gonna do the same for the other speaker. Boom. So now that we're done with sound, let's focus on power. And for power, we're gonna be using Hosa IEC cables. And just like we use for our XLRs, I like using 15-foot IEC cables. This allows me to go right from my speakers into my power source without the need of extension cords. Highly recommend that you go out and get yourself a nice long IEC cables like these ones from Hosa. So let's go ahead and plug these bad boys in. Left, right, sub. Speaker, speaker, sub. Next up, we're gonna take some power con cables and we're gonna run them inside of our truss. My truss may be a little bit different than yours. If you don't have a similar rig to what I have here, I'd recommend just going ahead and buying extension cords, which Hosa actually makes. Now, because I've actually gone ahead and mounted an ADJ power bank inside of my truss, I'm gonna need power con cables. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run my power con cables out of my truss into my power source. And what we're plugging into the power bank by ADJ is just gonna be our two lights at the top, which are our ADJ Wi-Fis and our focus spots. So let's go ahead and run that. So we're gonna take our power con cable and we're gonna run it off to the side to our power source. And we're gonna do this for both left and right. And that's pretty much it when it comes to powering my totems. Like I said, they're completely wireless. Check out the video that I made on how you can make your own. And we're gonna go right into our power source here. Boom. Now that our power situation is situated, let's focus on lighting or DMX. Now, when it comes to DMX, an easy way to speed this process up is by going wireless, which is why I'm a huge fan of the ADJ Airstream DMX bridge. And essentially what this is just a DMX controller that allows you to control it using a iPad or iOS device, something like an iPhone. Think of it like a traditional standard analog system. However, the faders are going to be on a virtual screen. This cuts the need for having multiple DMX cables. So the only DMX cables that we're actually going to be running are the DMX cables for our facade lights. Because the facade lights that I'm personally using are not wireless, we are going to have to come out of this Airstream DMX with a Hosa DMX cable. It doesn't have to be that long. I'm only going to be using a 5-foot DMX cable to go from our Airstream DMX, which usually rests right here on my table, down to our facade lights, which are on the floor. Now, additionally, when it comes to lighting, you're also going to need a DMX terminator. This terminates the signal. That way your lights aren't searching to send out additional signals. This is a DMX terminator, and they're also not too expensive. Now, here is an additional pro tip for all you guys out there that'll help you speed up your lighting process. I recommend that you go ahead and create some of these cables, and I'll show you how to make these cables for daisy chaining your lights. This is a great way to speed up your setup and breakdown process. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take 2 cables and turn them into 1. You can buy these cables out on the market, however, this is a cheaper way of doing it, and it's actually super simple to do. All you're gonna need is obviously the 2 cables. We're gonna take an IEC, just a traditional IEC male to female, and a DMX cable, same thing, male and female. Additionally, we're also going to use a bit of electrical tape. Let's go ahead and unwrap our cables. Again, very important that you get the same length cables. All right, so what you want to do is you want to stretch out your cables, and you want to make sure that you keep both male ends together and both female ends together. We're going to make sure that these are perfectly even, and we're going to go in with our electrical tape. You could go a couple times, just make sure you secure it. This is going to be a cable that you're going to keep together pretty much for life. Now we're going to want to do the same for the other end. Once more, we're going to come here with our electrical tape and just go around a couple times. Just make sure that it's nice and tight. Additionally, I like to do a 3rd joint in the middle just to keep everything nice and secure. And there you have it. Now we have 1 solid cable. These are great for daisy chaining your lights. Also, if you don't have wireless uplights, it's great to make a couple of these. Again, super easy to do. Just get yourself some IECs and DMX cables that are the same length. Take some tape and glue it together. All right, so to recap lighting, we are coming from the Airstream DMX bridge down to one of our lights, and we're doing a daisy chain. It's called daisy chaining when you run power and DMX from one light to another. So we're running a chain, a bridge from that light to this light, followed by this light to that light, and this light to that light. Now you may be wondering, what happens when it comes to your towers? Do you need to run DMX? If you don't have wireless lights like I do, as you guys can see, there is a little antenna here, and this is receiving signal from that Airstream DMX. It's going to receive wireless signal to this antenna, allowing me to control this light without any cables. Now, if you don't have wireless lights, then what you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to continue the chain, meaning that you're gonna need to go out of this light, up the tower into the light that's inside of the tower. If you do this, you'll probably have your light on the bottom. Because I keep mine permanently mounted with these brackets, they're rest at the top. So you'll run DMX cable inside here. Now, how do we get to the light up top? Because like I mentioned, this is a wireless light. We can not only receive, but we can also send with this light. So we took a Hosa DMX cable and we ran it up to our light up top there. Now, if we take a look at our DJ system and I whip out my DMX controller, if I go ahead and trigger them on, you'll notice that everything has come on. I can go ahead and trigger it off, and trigger it on. Everything is completely ready to go. Now that we've completed sound, power, and lighting, it's time to work on the visuals. Let's get to it. Bro, so I don't want to insult your intelligence when it comes to the visuals because it's honestly quite simple. What we're doing is we're taking Hosa HDMI cables. I have here a 25-footer, and what we're doing is we're coming out of the back of the TV into the computer that's on my left side here. Now, I do recommend that you also go ahead and buy nice long power cables for your TVs. I don't know what you call these cables. I always call them PlayStation cables because these are the same cables that they use to power you know, home devices, TVs, and things of that nature. But Hosa does make these cables as well. And what we've done is we've plugged this into the power bracket right inside of our trussing, and then we ran the HDMI cable down the truss into the computer. Additionally, as you guys can see, we have this awesome graphic running right now, which you can also buy and download. I'll leave a link in the card up above, as well as the description of this video, where you can go ahead and download the visual packs that you see running on the TVs now. This is a cool Spaceman one, and we have a ton of different ones to go with music. So whether if it's a slow song or an upbeat song or just like a total high energy dance set, we have visuals to match. You'll get about 100 different TV visuals to go with any song or event. There's one last and final step, and it's a crucial one that we don't want to miss out on. It's time for the cleanup. So we're gonna go ahead and bring in our facade to hide in all these cables. Additionally, we are going to tape our cables to the ground. I've already made a cable video talking about how to properly tape down your cables to the ground. I'm not going to go into detail. However, I do want to mention that Hosa does make gaff tape for all your taping needs. I'm personally a fan of the 3-inch as well as the 2-inch, and what I love about Hosa is that they have super long rolls. These are 60-yard rolls. As you guys can see, these are nice and thick. That's what she said. But all right, let's get to it. Let's go ahead, place our facade, and we'll be done with the entire setup. Let's see what it looks like. So there you have it. That is how you wire this entire DJ system behind me from start to finish using all Hosa cables. Guys, I want to send a huge shout out to my friends over at Hosa Technology for sponsoring this video. They provided me with every single cable that you guys saw in this video, and honestly, this video would not be possible without them. Hosa is the leading company when it comes to cables. I wouldn't recommend any other cables aside from Hosa. They are honestly the best cable company in the game, and like you saw, they make everything from DMX, XLRs, IECs, HDMIs, power cables, and everything in between. Hosa has it for you. Shout out to Hosa Technology for making this video possible. Bros, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them down in the comment section of this video. Please be sure to like this video if you like this, subscribe if you're new around here, and don't forget to turn on that bell so that you can be notified next time we do another how-to video. Signing off, DJ Bar. Stay awesome, bros. Peace.